Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Elektor Engineering Insights, where we meet creative people, makers, engineers. And today we have an incredibly innovative guest with us, with the most unique presence online, especially his YouTube channel. We welcome Sam Battle, better known as Look Mum, No Computer.
Good afternoon. How you doing?
Sam?
Well, I don't know why I should say good afternoon, because it could be any time. Could be any time, anywhere.
Yeah, that's true. We have a global audience. We've got people all the way from morning in Brazil to tomorrow morning in Philippines sometimes.
Canada, Belgium, Netherlands, España, Germany. Very nice.
Exactly. And I bet a lot of people give us a thumbs up if you already know Sam, because he has hundreds of thousands of subscribers there. He's a maverick in the world of DIY electronics and synthesizers. He captivates audience with unique and creative projects involving stuff that was around long before he was born. We're talking analog synthesizers from the 70s, but also he adds MIDI to them. And, you know, there was a time where there just was that synthwave sound in the early 80s. And while I've been preparing to speak with Sam, I've been remembering a lot of those old songs and tunes. So this should be a lively and creative discussion.
That's funny.
There's Passy already, and this comment section is on fire already. So I hope we can spot the questions.
Nice. Yeah.
So you're on the east coast of the UK. Ramsgate.
Who's on the east coast of the UK? I am.
It's you, right?
Yeah. I'd say I'm in the bottom east. Yes, I am. I am in Ramsgate, and the museum's open at the minute, so we can't do the live stream from the museum. It's far too noisy.
Well, I've been Googling you and looking at Google Street View on the maps and checking out where you are, because I'd love to visit. I will be in the UK in October. And how did you get involved in the museum?
The museum started because, well, I always wanted to set up a museum. I just didn't really know how to feasibly possibly do it. I didn't really think it was an option. My grandparents were trustees. They looked after, like, my granddad was like a caretaker at a museum when I was younger. And he took me around when it was closed. And it must have made a lasting effect on my mind, seeing all the thingamagoops around. And that probably, and then it skipped to 2020. The opportunity came around to get hold of this building and turn it into a museum. And because I had been doing YouTube videos for probably 5 years before that, I had amassed enough crap to actually justify starting a museum. I didn't quite have enough at that time, and then it snowballed into having enough stuff to start a museum. It's insane. It's mad, if you ask me.
It is a bit mad, but those are the most interesting people in the world, the mad ones.
Yeah, possibly.
And definitely check out Sam's channel. He does music videos. I'll just bring up a YouTube window here.
Oh, this one's Formant.
Yeah, the Formant from Elektor.
Yes.
I've just searched for Formant. You've done so many videos on that, but your actual channel, Sam is very creative. It does all kinds of things. I mean, telescope microphone over there, more on the Formant. You do music videos, which are great. There's a Commodore.
Lots of musical experiments. There's music on computers sometimes, yeah. I think that one, the one you went past, what is it? The SX64. I love the Commodore because of the SID chip has got analog filters in it. Well, the non-analog parts of the filters, the transconductance, operational transconductance amplifiers are in the SID chip, and then the filter, the filter capacitors on the outside of the chip. But it just sounds good. I just like the way it's how it's being addressed by the by the CPU, just making it so clunky sounding in a very endearing way. It's lovely. But oh yeah, that's one of the songs.
Yeah, and if I just mute myself.
That's all right. Yeah, that's one of the songs. So this video is of the full song that I made for that. So it's on Messiah, which is actually, I say, a modern piece of software for the Commodore 64. It's still, I think it was made in 2006, but it's a DAW, a digital audio workstation for the Commodore 64. So instead of using trackers, it's more like Logic or Ableton. And I found it quite easy to compose in that way. Even though I knew how to use trackers, I much prefer to use this, if I'm honest. Oh, Brian's muted.
I don't know if the music came through from your video using the SID chip there. I didn't know the SX64 had a SID chip as well. It's a little after my time. I did, as always, bring out some props. I don't have an SX64, but I've got the good old Commodore 64 here.
Yeah.
But the C64 came out in 1982 with its phenomenal SID chip, and I started out on this, which came out in about 81.
Yeah.
So,
and does that one
only has
sound chip, or is it running are you just sending sound out of the serial lines, or has it got a chip itself?
It does have a sound chip, but it's very primitive. It has 3 square wave voices that run from 110 hertz and upwards. And then there's a noise channel if you want to make.
Do you know which? Oh, it sounds very much like the what's the bloody name of it? It's in the Sega Master System. What is, and even in the Sega Mega Drive, I think it's the same chip, sound chip. It sounds like it from what you're saying. The where is sound? Oh no, SN.
The Sega has
94262
76496.
Oh, so it is a slightly different one, or is it? Oh, well, it's very similar because there's 3 square waves and a noise channel. So
yeah, I bet it would be the same chip. Yeah,
it might be.
But it's amazed me what they've done on this, because, as I say, there's no phenomenal SID chip and analog waveforms and attack, decay, sustain, release, all those tricks. But as they got more and more into the futures, people have managed to do audio sampling on the thing and playback voices and things, which is quite amazing.
Yeah, it is, but it's mad. Just being able to, well, it's the Microsoft SAM and the samples and stuff. And I've just double checked; they are the same chip. So you've got the same chip as the square wave sounds in a Sega Genesis for the North American market.
Yeah. Different names, maybe TMS99 something. And if we get distracted, audience, we apologize, because there are now 2 of us in the room who will Google something at a moment's notice when it comes up.
It's you want to know, don't you? It's annoying, like speculating, and you're sort of sure, but you're not. Especially when you're on the internet and somebody's gonna be like, actually, no. So you got to sometimes check your sources. But where were we talking about? Oh, that was the computers, the SID chip. It's very nice, but I'm trying to think what other. Oh, I think the Atari 2600, has that not got the same chip as well? Because I've made music on those as well. It's amazing, cross-compatible.
I think the 2600 was a little bit earlier, before that chip was even made.
Yeah, it's very possible. I don't even know what that had in it. It's been a while since I've looked at it. It might very well be the predecessor to that chip. Hey ho, there are synthesizer modules of the SN76489 and also of the SID chip. I don't have either of them, but the 76489 is quite a popular one to make synthesizer modules. So the Eurorack, you're aware of Eurorack, are you?
Sorry, say again. Eurorack, yeah, of course.
Yeah. So there's a few interesting ones that have the sound chip from the TI-99 in them. I think one of them's Special Stage Systems. I think they make a really crazy chip, a really crazy module. So yeah, but talking about going off on one, I've got the Formant stuff, so I better show and tell really quickly for the So this is my the box of Formant modules, Elektor Formant modules that haven't quite yet made it into a case for one reason or another. So got the telltale blue. So that's are they still blue? Are the circuit boards still blue for Elektor?
Not anymore, but they clearly were for a while, because what you're holding up is from the 70s, and I got this in 1990. And it's blue with the black tracks. And that's cool. Is that red on the back?
Yeah, they're all red on the back. Red silk screen on the back. I wonder when it switched. If it doesn't, because it had such it's got a very definitive style. Does it have the black tracks on the front?
Yeah.
Is it a double-sided circuit board, that one, or single-sided?
it's single-sided, but the black tracks are there as a guide on the silk screen.
God.
As you can see, I've
that's
done
crazy.
some
That's
messing
1990.
around there.
It's got a serial number as well, hasn't it?
Yeah.
So this one's 9725, and this must be 1980, no, late 1970s. 97. What's your serial number on that one you've got?
Well, talk about geeking out. 90055.
90055.
If I'm reading it correctly.
Oh,
yeah.
That's got 9725. Ooh. Anyway, getting carried away on all of the talking, but the cool thing is about the Formant synthesizer is there was a redesigned version of it. I mean, you may know because you obviously you work at Formant, you might be more aware of this, but it was called the new synthesizer. So in the early 1980s, when the Curtis chips came out, these were the chips that we used in the polyphonic synthesizers for quick and easy sound circuits, like the Prophet or big Roland synthesizers. They had these Curtis chips, and then the Formant got updated to be slightly smaller. I haven't got any of these. I've just heard about it and read about it in the magazines. But they get cut down. The connector on the back is halved in size, and the circuits are so much simpler. And it's called the new synthesizer. So there's the Elektor Formant and then the Elektor new synthesizer, which are very similar, semi-patchable, but two different design types. The new synthesizer being in this panel size, and the Formant being in both big mummers and little mummers. Quite mad.
Yeah.
Quite mad.
And that was the VCO, the voltage control oscillator board.
This one was, yes. Extremely busy, this design, but it is before those Curtis chips. So it uses, oh God, I can't remember now. I think it's a triangle core oscillator. And then it's just, it's a really interesting read. Like there's a book for the English readers, because I think the magazines for this, I don't know whether there were English versions of the magazine was there, but there's a book, Formant, just Elektor Formant. You can find it online, sit and learn about it all. The interesting thing is, I found collecting different types of the Elektor Formant circuits, that some of them, a lot of them, were actually possibly pirated, which is quite funny. So I don't think these, unless I'm misunderstanding it, but there's ones that are literally not in the blue. So this is just because they were available on the magazine. So maybe somebody decided to make a few for them and their friends from the magazine, because obviously there was the option of just etching the circuit board yourself instead of purchasing the PCB direct from Elektor. Like this is an assembled version of one that is not an Elektor blue. I don't know what this one is.
Because we used to publish the circuit tracks as well if you want to do etch your own. So I wouldn't exactly call it pirating.
Well, no, I'm just assuming
industriousness.
Industriousness, that's the one. Yeah, you're definitely right there. I think I used the wrong term, but in like this one, this is the COM module. There's some notes. There's some German notes. Oh, if I can get a good shot of this.
Okay.
Who can read that and tell us what that says? Actually, that says 20. This was made in 2013.
Oh, okay.
That's interesting. So Elektor by Leo. Oh, get on the phone to Leo. Yeah, COM module, Zoom Formant synthesizer, Elektor. Yeah, cool. Anyway, sorry, getting sidetracked again.
Let me just interrupt you for a second.
Yeah,
have a
of
look
course.
At the chat. Welcome our audience, because a lot of positive comments here. Sebastian.
Oh yeah, there's a load of them.
Says, "What an awesome guy." We've got a whole bunch. We've got Frank de Hert. He's a regular here. Huge fan of your channel. Gerald says, "Nice to meet you. Been following your YouTube channel for a while. Very nice stuff, especially about the church organ you rebuilt."
Ah, yes.
Olivia says, "I like your approach to music and electronics in general." And just to change tack a bit, because we're looking at the chat, I want to remind our audience of our regular giveaway.
Ooh.
Go to our website, Elektor Engineering Insights giveaway. And this week, because it's audio themed, we are giving away 3 of these Elektor audio collections. So as you know, Elektor's been going around since the 50s and a little bit less in English. And you can find an entire collection of audio-related circuits. You just go to the website, you put in your code word down there, and if you know how this works, I'll give you the code word a bit later. Ooh. So let's remove that and have a look at some of the.
Well, I best write that down because I want to join that as well. I want to join the chance for that. That sounds cool. Like that. What? So it's a memory stick full of most of the musical circuits from Formant.
Correct, and I'm sure we could send you one anyway. Oh, well, you've already won by being the guest. Some highlights are surround sound decoder, compact amp, sampling rate converter, so digital stuff in there as well. Those were some fun projects in the early 90s. SPDIF I used to play with as well. Infrared. Oh. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So,
yeah.
Cool thing to win. Question from CJ, if we can just throw you right in the deep end with some questions, Sam.
Yeah, go
Where
for
did you get all your amazing tech? Do you have teams sourcing it, or you search for stuff yourself 24/7?
For starters, I don't have a team. It's funny. Like, I think people maybe assume that there's people around me, but usually it's just myself in front of a camera or on a computer and just ticking away. I've got a friend who helps at the run, like when the museum's open, but apart from that, there's no team. So it's just me. I'm emailing. So I find out examples. Before the museum, I just Gumtree, which is a second-hand site in the UK, car boot sales. The Brawl and Cures, the big tester generators, these big green oscillators. I went on a binge of emailing nearly every single university in England to ask if they had any in the cupboards. So that just different bits, and then also purchasing broken on eBay. I hardly ever purchase working things because I find that if you purchase a working thing, it works. If you buy something that's broken, number one, you get it for cheaper, and when you fix it, number two, you automatically put a bit of value into it. So it's just a little bit. I just feel it's a bit more savvy to always buy broken. But if you've got the skills to fix it, sometimes I break it more. Anyway,
that's a bit of a sore point because I'm also an old fan of retro tech, and when I see how people have hacked the speak and spells, for example, I've got one here.
Oh yeah,
drilled holes through them and soldered wires. If you got it broken, I guess that's fine then.
Yeah,
because you've added value, as you say.
It's a different bit. The thing is with the speak and spell is I think when circuit bending became very popular in the mid 2000s, the speak and spell was at the bottom of the bell curve where it was just old and not super. There's nostalgia and the age hadn't really built it. So a lot of the machines got modded and destroyed but modified at that point, and now they're coming back up to being. There's a bell curve, and everything that gets done in that kind of manner is always when the piece of technology is at the bottom of it. That's when all the mods happen.
That's an excellent point. The bell curve or inverse bell, and I've never thought about it that way, but I have realized that there were times in the late 90s when I wanted some extra add-ons for this Texas Instruments computer, and there was tons in the US, but the shipping was just crazy. And the guy in one of the user groups was telling me they had these boxes. People were leaving them out on the sidewalk because nobody wanted them. There was a glut of them, and the user group meeting was over for the weekend, and they just leave them out there. And so that was my opportunity lost. Now you look at them on eBay, they're like $200. So there definitely was a dip at the bottom there.
And that's same goes for synthesizers as well. Like this, it's ridiculous now. I mean, I didn't really know synths when they were cast away, but there was in the 90s and the early 2000s, just to pick them up for now, nearly. And I've got in my hand actually, just before I forget, this is one of the, amazingly enough, sorry, I'll get sidetracked with the proper Elektor front panels. They're double skinned. So there's a mount that gets put to hold the PCB that's riveted on this intermediate piece of metal. So there's no sign of any mounting from the front on the front one. It's really interesting.
Ah,
It's properly built. But yeah. Anyway, carrying on. I'll put it down now. I'll forget about it.
no, you don't expect that sort of attention to detail on something that you built at home.
No.
Just incidentally, speak and math, front panel, no holes. Once
No
again,
holes. No holes. Yeah. I have been guilty of modifying a few speaking spells in the past. I haven't done recently because I feel that I've got 4 that have got holes in them, and I've got a couple that are not and are untouched at the museum that people use, but they still get mistreated, unfortunately. But that's the thing of letting people use these things, is sometimes they can get a little bit broken. But yeah, what question were you on? How did you find where you were on the comments?
If you go to live at the top there, next to it is starred. So we've starred a few questions.
Oh wow!
Like here's one from Dom Cognato. Speak and spell, as we discussed, the Elektor Formant, Game Boy, Commodore 64, and SX64. So many creative uses for awesome tech. And I see you just used a paintbrush to scratch your head. So you definitely find creative uses for awesome tech.
I don't know what I've got.
You've been doing some home, because you've been doing home renovation today, of course.
Well, yeah, I've been at the back of the museum, just slowly knocking down some more. There's a storage room in the back, and just got to get the plasterboard dividing walls out. And it's another thing. There's no team. It's just right now. It's me and a friend. We're knocking through it stuff. But I've got the paintbrush here because paintbrushes, if anybody's got all this old crap, old stuff and endearing crap, is paintbrushes are great for dusting between the knobs.
Yeah.
That's why this is here.
Yeah.
Just because it was covered in dust when I was walking, because of the plasterboard when I was carrying it over. So that's why this is in my hand. So I'll put that down.
Well, I used the brush earlier to clean my lenses, but you got those formants there, and they look pretty good.
Oh, these.
And I read something in electronics.
Oh, these are
not those.
Oh, good.
Sorry, the bits of the formant, once you finish building them, they look pretty good, because I read in Electronics magazine once that the problem with homemade electronics is they look like homemade electronics, but there was definitely an aesthetic at the time in the late 70s to building the formant and the other stuff that you've got there, which hopefully you'll tell us about, where it doesn't look like you made it at home. Like you said, they even took attention to detail so you couldn't see any holes in the faceplates.
Yeah. Well, there was a point. So the history of DIY synthesizers in magazines goes, well, they started by just the circuit boards, strip board layouts, in magazines in the early 70s. And then they started capitalizing Formant being one of the earliest ones. And also Maplin in Electronics Today International. You've got the Powertran, which is a kit that basically looks like it. That it's funny you say the DIY kits, they look like they're homemade. It's funny. I always find it's the opposite. They look proper, but they sound homemade. Because they tend. The problem with finding DIY electronic magazine synthesizers nowadays is none of them have been built in the factory, so they might look the same from the front because somebody might have done the front panel properly, but then they might have made a couple of mistakes that they've never fixed, and they don't realize what they've done or something, or wired something wrong. So you never know what you're getting when you get a second-hand synthesizer, unless it's been fully tested by a reputable source who knows how they're supposed to work. If that isn't the case, then you could be getting anything. And if it says it isn't working and there's no picture on the front, it's a very big risk, because you have no idea what's on the inside. You don't know whether it was someone's first time trying to put these things together, or they were a seasoned amateur that liked putting the kits together and liked putting them together in a big standard. For instance, a good way of telling is, you see all this circuit, the wires here that connect the front panel. In the 70s, all the DIY synthesizers, the potentiometers were on the front panel, circuit boards on the back. Well, that's a good way of telling what kind of person or what kind of level they have been put together, because I'm trying to find one that's looking particularly janky. This one's quite okay. This one's a little bit on the janky side. Sometimes they're extremely neat, and I don't think I have any extremely neat ones on here. They're all a little bit like that, but you can tell that one's a little bit neater. You can tell it's just been thought out a little bit more, but it kind of gives you an idea that if the wiring to the potentiometers are kind of neat, then you have a good idea that it's probably working the way it was intended to in the magazine.
Yeah, and this sound chip that you mentioned that was used in the Sega Mega System, it's 5-volt compatible. So one of the things I wanted to do is connect it to an Arduino and see what I can sort of get by running it on an Arduino. Have you had a lot of fun connecting digital microcontroller circuits to older analog equipment or midifying them, that sort of thing?
Well, yeah, all manner. Starting at old computer sound chips, I wired an Arduino to control a SID chip via MIDI that was plugged into a bass guitar. So it was inside a bass guitar, but I'm not the most savviest of coders, so that was quite heavily reliant on another person's project online. It was quite a while ago. I cannot remember the details. But then the SN, what is it? SN 76489. There are actually quite a lot of there's projects already that Arduino. If you type in Arduino 76489, you can find quite a few good start-offs. I mean, in the data sheet, you can obviously you can read all of the stuff, but I'm getting sidetracked. So, digital electronics and analog. Well, what am I looking at? So, on the back of this circuit board, I'll just pull it off. So, this is a sequencer. It's actually a Eurorack version of this sequencer over here. So, this is a sequencer from my Cosmo module. So I make synthesizer modules in this format. It's 20 centimeters tall, and it started because I had a load of metal that was 20 centimeters tall, metal panels, but I built them this size. This is a completely analog one. After I started building strip boards, I went to PCBs, but this is an example of a analog electronics, and then there's an Arduino on the back, because basically what it is the sequencer's power and a piece of Arduino code, but it's got transistors that buffer the input and op amps that buffer the output. So it's just takes the 12-volt line from the analog electronics and just drops it into 5 volts. However, I found that also Arduinos, because of the way the inputs are actually wired, there is an over voltage protection, and you can get away with just wiring Arduinos directly into analog circuitry. The negative voltages get ignored because of the overload protection, because the voltage coming out of this can fluctuate between plus 12 volts and minus 12 volts. It just ignores anything below 12 volts. And if you pump in 12 volts into an Arduino, it won't fry. So it's you can just get your banana jacks and just, there's no worry. A lot of prototyping, when I prototype Arduino for modular synthesizers, I don't bother with any protection. It's just when I try to make it for other people to use.
Okay, I did not expect to hear that. 12 volts.
Yeah, I mean, to be
dangerously with 12 volts.
Yeah. Somebody could double check that for me, but I think in the Atmega 328 chip, it's just got over voltage protection on all of the digital and analog pins, and negative voltage protection. But for instance, the Cosmo synthesizer that I gig live with, there's a module in there specifically that's made on strip board. So I just tried to build it as quickly as possible, and that has been in there for 8 years, possibly since I built it, used regularly with an Arduino in there that's got no voltage protection, and it is every gig, bam, 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 12 volts, 12 volts, 12 volts on all of the pins, still working.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's amazing. Yeah, that's something I want to look at, but I won't do it right now because I want to get to Frank DeHart's question. He's always wanted to build a Formant, still do, but the big challenge was and still is sourcing a keyboard. Now, I mean, this behind me is just a keyboard. It doesn't output any sound. It's just a MIDI control. It just outputs keys via MIDI. Could you use something like that on an older synthesizer, or do you need a special synthesizer that's sourced from that era?
Okay, yeah. So with the Formant in particular, the keyboard for the Formant, little bit annoying to find actually, and they're also not out of all of the designs of the Elektor Formant, the keyboard is probably the weakest design the way that the springs work under the key bed gets stuck a lot, and you're forever trying to untangle it. If I was you, I wouldn't try and look for a Formant keyboard. I would go for analog synthesizers. The best thing you could do, probably money-wise, is getting something like a Arturia KeyStep Pro. The reason why I say one of these is because behind you is a MIDI keyboard controller. It's great, but you have to get an intermediate box between the MIDI to the control voltage for the analog synth. So you've got a MIDI to CV converter, and you've got the MIDI keyboard. Or you can buy a MIDI keyboard, which is an Arturia KeyStep Pro, which is a controller keyboard, but it also has control voltages out. So you can plug it into your computer, you can plug it into any other MIDI synthesizer, like that one could be, or you could plug it into analog synthesizers. Hope that wasn't too many big words. I don't know where the level of where you're at. So yeah.
Well, if Frank wants to build a Formant, I think you're right, spot on there. I'm just going to play a bit of this video with you working on the Formant. How many hours did you spend on? I bet you didn't rack it up anyway, but it looks like quite a lot of work.
So this video, from start to finish, I tend to do projects in week chunks, so a week-long chunks. So this one was just a solid week of putting this one together. I think it spilled over into a part 2, which was another video. I can't remember exactly. No, sorry. It was 2 weeks. This was 2 solid weeks. So Monday to Friday, Monday to Friday.
And where is your workspace? At home or at the museum? Or
that one is in my garage. So I've got a garage in the side, but I can't do live streams there because I've yet to wire in the internet. The internet doesn't
look at
reach
all those component drawers.
Yeah, there's a lot of component drawers, and funnily enough, I've had them for so long that they've all got so unorganized that I know where everything is in my head. But if anybody else goes in there, looks at the label, I'm like, oh yeah, that label's wrong. It's over here. It's not very helpful. But this is another thing you look at. So with the Elektor Formant, a lot of people didn't follow the actual the design. The design is supposed to be you put the modules in and they slot into the connectors at the back. However, a lot of people just had them hanging out and then they just pushed the connectors onto the back of it. The problem with that is all of the circuit boards in all of the different designs are all at different distances from the front panel. So in that video, I've had to shim all of these to be exactly the right length, so they all connect into the connectors that are at the back, which is in the initial design of the Formant. I decided to make the actual wooden case really kind of rickety wooden 1970s stained, just so it fitted a little bit more with the project like it would have been intended somewhat. But yeah, the project here, I've done videos on the Formant before, but in an incorrectly built way like this. But this is the correct way that the magazine says to do it in this video.
Always follow the correct way.
Yeah, but at the same time, you don't have to if you want a quick result.
Well, you got a great result. I don't know about a quick result, but it was a great result, clearly.
It's a good result.
Just a comment from Olivier here. Love your super simple DIY oscillator, which I believe we're looking at now.
Yep.
You can make in 10 minutes, super cheap and easy. So
yeah, if you have all the parts, you can make it in 10 minutes. Yes. However, I found
if you want to,
sorry,
for the audience, if you want to check this out, if you can't see the URL at the top, look mumnocomputer.com. That's Sam's website, and you can find the simplest oscillator there.
Yeah.
Tell us about this oscillator.
So it started by what was it? I had to make a really simple oscillator circuit for some educational thing, and I was looking around trying to be like, what's the easiest single oscillator you can figure out? Is it a Schmidt trigger or something? But then you've got a chip in there. It looks big and chunky. I'm trying to make it look simple as well. And I found that on the internet, the reverse avalanche, which is where you don't connect the emitter leg of the transistor, and it makes the LED flash that is connected to the transistor. But I thought that if the LED flashes on this reverse avalanche of using a transistor, then you could probably get an audio output instead of the LED. So I just made a version of an oscillator that it's the circuit where you can plug into a speaker. So this picture right here that you've got is a little bit more complicated because you've got a tone knob. But if you remove the tones part of it, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 components and a knob, and that's a single oscillator. And without the tone knob, you can wire it directly into a passive speaker, and there's enough power for it to power the speaker. It's cool, but I've till this day I still have a few angry emails of people saying, "Oh, it doesn't work, this circuit," and I think it's because the first time I did it, I used the 2N3904, and I think some of the 2N3904s maybe are not real 2N3904s, and they have a different point at which they start oscillating in this incorrect manner of a transistor. So I find when I suggested that, there was a part 2 of this further down the page where I think I can't remember what transistor I suggested to use. It's that's still 2N3904, but I think I carried on and it's somewhere. It will be in the 1000 oscillator Megadrone. So after this project, I went to the 1000 oscillator Megadrone. Oh, here we go. SS9018. I saw it red. So this is the 100 oscillator Megadrone. It's basically 100 of them somewhere there. Yeah, SS9018 is the one to go for because that transistor has it will oscillate at the lowest voltage in this reverse avalanche manner. And this is me putting together 100 of those oscillators into it. Sounds amazing. Sounds like, I don't know, it's just fun. And then after that, yeah, bloody heck, I'm young in that one. That's like 2018. And then after that, it was 1000. I built 1000, and I still have this plan, but I've got 10,000 of them these transistors sitting on the box. I'm struggling to come to terms with making something that is potentially, there's no point in it because I think it's a waste. Going for a 10,000 oscillator Megadrone seems to me like a waste of resources. But who knows? It might happen if I can find a really good reason. Oh, you're on mute.
I had to mute myself to play your video. Olivia said that it takes 10 minutes to make, and that's right up my alley because we don't have a lot of time these days for weekend projects, but I'd love to put together an oscillator in 10 minutes. But your Megadrone was clearly not a 10-minute project. No, it wasn't. It was a right old faff. That took, I think it took 3 months actually. 3 months of on and offs. Only. It wasn't all the time.
On and offs. From start to finish, 3 months.
It looks super cool though.
Oh, that one. Benoit wants to know. That took me a week to build. That one. That was the 100 oscillator one. I started on Monday. I ordered all the parts from Rapid Electronics. They turned up the next day. I had a lot of it already, but I spent a couple of months saving up for it, and then I just started on Monday and built it and finished the video on Sunday. I seem to remember. So there we go. There's 100 of those oscillators. So they take 10 minutes each, but if you do them in bulk, you can get them all built in a day. I think it probably took, and then there was drawing that took a day, and then soldering the bits together. Yeah, just long days. I just sit and chock away.
And what's your process like? Do you play music in the background, or do you find it meditative?
I kind of just whistle. I used to like watch things and do things, but nowadays I just sit and talk to myself. I find it's a great time to also be able to let your mind wander. I think that people nowadays don't let their mind wander long enough for enough time. So if you've got music in the background, or if you've got TV or something going, your mind is somewhat thinking about that, and it doesn't properly just drift off into thinking of other things, I think. So I personally tried my hardest to starve it of external, what's the word? Things.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I meant by meditative. A lot of people say that working with your hands, whether it's crocheting or coloring in or doing what you do, let your mind wander. And I wasn't always a fan of that. Back in the 90s, I used to have something on all the time, always words coming in.
Yeah.
Just keep filling myself with information. But I think the future is here, and we have enough notifications. We don't have to be looking for more. Sometimes nice to have a bit of quiet.
That
to do something with your hands.
It's good, yeah, and it's not good for everybody around me, because like I look up at the end of the day and it's like my wife is like, I've been trying to get in contact with you, or somebody's like, why aren't you replying to this or something? I'm hopeless in those modes.
Yeah. How do you find time for music with all the electronics engineering and DIY work? DIY work from eTech USA.
Yeah, I don't know really. It's a bit of both. So I slice it up into time chunks, basically. So if I need to build something, I'll have to build something. If I feel that I need to make the music, I make the music. I don't really sit down and go, I don't sit down and do it for 10 minutes. I'd need to just, it's either music or something else. If you see what I mean. I find it very hard to jump into the mode and then fall out of the mode. It's got to be solid for a few hours.
I'm the same. I'm not a fan of multitasking. In other situations, when I was doing programming, I would find I couldn't actually get into the project if I knew I had a meeting in half an hour.
Oh, yeah.
You're still floating, waiting for that meeting, and then you can settle down.
And it's just,
but eTech USA.
Oh, sorry, Carrie. It's a shame that sometimes you find yourself not able to be in a position where you can spend 3 hours on something like that, and you have to squeeze it in here and there. And I think sometimes it's about trying to train yourself to figure out how to do it. But I haven't successfully been able to do that, like yourself.
Yeah.
Very hard.
Yeah. Good comment from eTech USA. You should create another YouTube channel called Buy It Broke and Whistle While You Fix It. Pretty much what Sam does already.
Honest, yeah, I mean, I've that a lot of time. I think I would love to do more channels. If I had more time, I would love to do more videos on this, that, and the other. It's just, I think I'm working at the top of what I can pull together at the minute, unfortunately. So I would, I'm always sitting back and saying, oh, well, I could have done a video on that quicker, but then it's like the editing and all that stuff. I'm working flat out already, so I wish I could. Yeah. Maybe just live streams. But I did that before, and maybe I'd need to start that again. Yeah. Whistling.
There's a question for us at Elektor from Benoit. He wants to know if there's any plan to reissue formats and schematics. Well, you can already get those articles in our archive at Elektor, but we are certainly looking to clean them up and bring them into the future. Yeah. Updated bill of materials. Well, you could probably do them a lot smaller now, I would imagine. Yeah. But I will say this, in changing the subject, it's somewhat related to this blue that we were talking about. We did have some meetings earlier this year to standardize on the color for all future boards, and we came back to blue. So our boards will be blue. That's not that exact shade.
That'd be very cool. I mean, blue with the black. I mean, I think blue and black silk screens is like very nice, but we're finding somebody with the black, able to do the black, but who knows. And another thing I mentioned is the revisiting the bill of materials for the Formant. I think it's a much wiser, if somebody's trying to build an Elektor synthesizer now in the style of this, is going for the new synthesizer, because it's the parts are much more readily available. The design of the oscillator, for instance, of the Formant oscillator, is based around, I can't remember. It's like the transistor. Where is it? Is this even the oscillator? Yeah. One of the chips is a bit of a pain in the bum to find. It's not the op amps. So the model. Oh, that's why it's gone. One of the other chips, one of my other modules was broken, so I took it from this one. The new synthesizer, because other polysynths use the chips that are based on the Elektor new synthesizer, reissues have been made, like the Curtis CEM3340, which is an oscillator chip, used in loads of things, even used in my personal Cosmo design Curtis chip, and the circuit around it much easier. It's just but it's in the same style from the front. So I'll quit blabbing. Formant new synthesizer, new synth, something like that.
Cool. We'll Google that, and I encourage you in the audience to Google that as well. Question. One question for Sam. How does the Formant sound compare to other synths that you know?
Yeah. So it's funny about synthesizers and people mentioning that they sound different and they're different sounds and things. It's a straight. I think it's all down to gain staging. It's not as much down to the because the oscillators, the oscillators and the filters in the Formant are nearly the same circuit designs because they're relatively based, like the filter is quite based on the data sheet of operational transconductance amplifiers as other synthesizers of the time. So it sounds quite similar to, it's very similar filter to a Korg MS-20 later version, the reissue version. But it sounds the same as other synthesizers, but it's got quirks, and the quirks are down to the way it's designed and the way the gain staging works. And if you see in my video, you can tell because you can have as many oscillators as you like, you can make it sound quite a lot more frumpy. But I think it's got it can sound like a Mini Moog or it can sound like an MS-20. And for people who are just listening with their eyes closed, I bet you could trick it to being, after fiddling around with the knobs, to sounding like any of the synths, really.
Yeah,
maybe not.
I don't know if we're going to have time for all these great questions.
Anyway, yeah.
Speaking of Mini Moog, not Mini Moog, but inexperience with Akai MPC and modulars.
Okay, yes. So David Costello, modulars, of course, as you can see around me. There's modulars. It's my main experience. As for MPCs, I did have a MPC 2000 back a while back because I was trying to figure out the best way of sequencing synthesizers live in a way that would work, where I could also pre-program songs in, but also play live ones. And I liked it. I just found that the MPC way of working just felt a little bit too much of a faff for me. So I kind of went off it. The old ones, I've got this romantic idea of getting one of the old archived MPCs and having a go on it again. But then I keep on reminding myself of how little I enjoyed the process of making music on it. So I'm sorry, the MPCs are not for me, unfortunately.
Well, it does look like quite a faff making music on the analog synths, knowing exactly which knob to twiddle to get exactly the right effect.
Yeah, I think it's all down to isn't it? And what you've learned.
Yeah. Some great soundtracks from the past, especially from the era. I think A Clockwork Orange was a good one of them. I'm not sure how many of these you know or like, but Doctor Who, the synths that they used in there, they were always very innovative because that show's been going, I don't know, 60, 70 years. They remake the intro every season, but it's, I remember the 80s one, definitely synth in there. And what sort of synth music do you like? I just thought of one today, Sweet Dreams by Eurythmics.
Oh, that's a classic, of course, isn't it? I mean, I like all of the music. If I'm honest, I wasn't really into synth music when I got into it. I loved guitar stuff, but I liked technology. And then I found when I was listening, when I was building the synths, I was like, oh yeah, synth. It was a bit before my time, and my parents listened to guitar music, so I would, of course, Eurythmics and all of the synth music of the earlier part of the 80s, when it was kind of the pioneering part of the pop music. I quite like. When it got a little bit overproduced, it's not my thing, but yeah, Sweet Dreams and stuff like that, amazing because it's so simple. And the other thing about the 80s music, which I feel is getting lost in the modular synth world nowadays, is pop sensibility. Like there's strong compositions, and the synthesizers just suit those kind of compositions, just good pop compositions.
Yeah. Let me return to our giveaway. So it's time to do the keyword, especially since Benoit is asking. The URL, let's get that up on screen, is electromagazine.com/Elektor-Engineering-Insights-giveaway. And our keyword to enter there will be LMNC for Look Mum, No Computer. Ooh. Where'd you get that name, by the way?
Okay, so it's a convoluted story, but I think it's just, I thought it was cool. It was like, look, Mum, I'm not got my hands on the bike. Look, Mum, no hands, but with a computer. I'm a big fan of making clunky names. Like the museum's called "This Museum Is Not Obsolete." I just like it when doesn't sound very nice. It's kind of ugly. It's just something that I like.
Well, there is an aesthetic and lack of aesthetic, like that logo of yours. Did you draw that by hand? Because I noticed all the O's don't match up.
Yeah,
I like that.
So
I don't like when it's made to look handmade, but then every O looks the same.
Well, that's because I can draw it really quickly. That's the first time I drew it. I just doodled it on a piece of paper, took a photo of it, put it into Photoshop, removed the white around the Sharpie, and that's what it is. But I'm very, awesome. I can draw pretty much exactly the same every time now, because I draw it when at gigs and stuff and people ask for signatures, I literally draw it. It takes about 5 seconds. But that's the other thing about logos, is it's always good when somebody can just draw it, I think.
Yeah. Speaking of gigs, question from Francisco. Do you have gigs across Europe?
So I do. I did a 3-week-long tour about 3 months ago in Europe. So I'm probably not going to play in Europe again until the start of next year. But I've got a couple of gigs. I don't do many gigs because I like slicing them up, because gigs get to the point. I know some of my friends, they just tour all the time. It's not my thing, I think. I like just sitting down and getting on with building machines and then having a very concentrated bit of playing gigs. So maybe Europe, it will be starting next year, but I've got 2 or 3 shows. There's a couple more shows coming on. And also, sorry, I forgot, August the 22nd, which is in 3 weeks, I'm building a synthesizer for the gig and playing it. In fact, this is 2 boxes of it. It's going to be 6 boxes of this, and I'm trying to have it built within 10 days, and then I'm going to have the songs written in the 2 weeks after 2 weeks before the gig, you know. So got a lot of soldering. I'm doing it every evening, this thing.
And you've got 2 upcoming gigs listed there: Thursday 10, Friday 11 October. When will you be adding more?
I don't know. I can't remember. That's a question I cannot remember for the answer for. Sorry.
I'll tell you why. For selfish reasons as well, I'm asking that, because I will be visiting Raspberry Pi in the UK at the end of October, so I'd love to drop in and see one of your gigs as well.
Unfortunately, I don't think I have a gig at the end of October. I think I'm back to hermit mode then. Museum's open though.
Okay, I'll visit the museum then. Might come and look at that other museum near you, the retro computer one.
Oh yeah, Retro Computer Museum, which is next door. It's literally next door. That's why we're trying to cut down on the computers, because we need more space for other things, and they've already got the computers. So we figured, why have we got the same computers as them? It seems a bit silly. We should, more different things for people to see,
Yeah, more original stuff and very old stuff. I'm used to being the one in these talks where I say, well, back in my time, but you've gone even before my time. So I was all in the digital music space, and this analog stuff is fascinating.
Back in my
it's too fascinating.
Sorry?
Because we've got so many. I said it's too fascinating because we have a time limit, and we're about 5 minutes before we run out of time.
Oh yeah, we are.
So many questions, and so many good questions on the audience as well. Show us what you've got there in your hands.
Oh, is that a question? Oh, I've just been fiddling with this. This is what is it? A delay, an audio delay. There's 3 delays inside of it based on PT2399 chips, which are basically, I can't remember the details. We'll do quick fire though. Shall we do the quick fire or get all the questions answered? I love the way
MIDI looper.
MIDI looper. Can we know a little more? So the MIDI looper that I'm using currently, Arturia Beat Step Pro, and that's the other thing that I suggested. Key Step Pro, which is a keyboard version. So basically a looper. So you can loop MIDI, or you can loop control voltage outputs, or you can loop into your computer. Search up Arturia Key Step Pro. It's the best sequencer thing for just getting things done between different formats.
That's an interesting question. I don't know if you know the answer to this, but I wonder if the Elektor Junior computer is in the other museum.
Sadly not.
Come across.
I haven't found any. It wasn't as popular of a project as the Formant, but I do think it's a better version. I think it came out a little bit later on after the boom of kits because it's very simple. The Digisound 80 is based on the Curtis chips as well, but I think because the Formant new synthesizer came out a couple of years after the chips came along, it's a little bit more finessed. I think it's better. And Eric B, I'm always looking for Brule and Kjær parts. The museum is, so just an interest. Yeah. Oh, it's coming up. Well, never saying no to stuff because currently we're building a radiophonic lab. This is like you say Doctor Who. So the test lab. There's people come. There's been one person booking it every week so far using it, but a couple of the oscillators have packed up. We need to fix them, so we need a couple of spares so we can swap them as and when things stop working, and then they need repairing and such.
Yeah. Baltic Lab, regular guest of ours, says no time limits. We demand an encore. Yeah, that's because he's also been on the show and come across time limits.
The time limits.
You have a good show. You have a good show.
The what? Sorry.
When you have a good show, you have a good show. Unfortunately, you're going to hit up against the time limit. Are you going to restock the triple slash?
Oh, is it not in stock? Oh, shucks. Funnily enough, I've got 4 more modules that I've designed for this thing that's coming out. So I'll make sure to restock that with it. It'll be by the end of August. And Eric, if you want to send us an email, if you've got Brules, then do let us know. We'll never say no. From Rotterdam, sunny Rotterdam. Fire us an email. Brilliant tickering with
an email, Eric B.
I could talk about telephone exchanges for hours. Of it, like other things, they're just fascinating. And I went for a binge on obsessional learning about them and fixing them. There's one working at the museum. In fact, there's multiple different types of telephone exchanges working at the museum. We're trying to find more. They keep on turning up every so often. I don't know how people have managed to save these machines, but it's crazy. Yeah, big clunky relay telephone exchanges. Fascinating things. About a ton each.
Yeah.
In weight.
Those are the days. I remember before there was touch tone. It used to pulse dial.
Yeah, that's the thing. Pulse dial, that's what they are. Like the touch tone is when they started going into discrete electronics. But the pulse is literally an on and off on the wire that turns a relay like that. It's so intrinsic. It's just mad. Like what you're hearing
We used to bypass.
Sorry?
We used to bypass our parents' telephone locks. You used to have a key on the telephone to stop you from turning the dial, but you could tap it. You could tap 5 times to do the pulse dialing and get by the lock.
And this was in
Question
South Africa.
Again from E-Tech.
Yeah, E-Tech, sorry.
Do you start with music making and look for sounds from these tech solutions, or is it the other way around? Do you tinker with tech and hear something and it leads to music?
One of both. It's different every time, but 9 times out of 10, when I do normal songs, I whistle the song and then I go and play the song on the keyboard, and then it's like that. But it's usually that way around. I've got a composition or a part, but sometimes the composition is from just playing on the keyboard, and then I add the sounds afterwards. But I've tried all different ways. It's just different ways work for different people, I think.
And because we're on quick fire, thank you for your Atari kit. It was great to build something, fun to go through the suppliers and find the right components. Discovered a new world. Did you start with toy circuit bending?
Yes, I started with circuit bending. Well, I didn't start with circuit bending. I started with kits, effects pedals, building effects pedals because Brian May apparently built one. And I was like, oh, I want to be like Brian May because I was playing guitar. And then I went and found in charity shops, if you bought old toys, like Speaking Spells, I'm sorry, and you messed with the circuits, they make weird noises. I learned that and realized I thought that I could standardize toys by making toys modular, and then I discovered modular synthesizers. And I found out modular synthesizers from the website Music from Outer Space. This was in probably 2011, and then I was like, I figured out this was way better than this was making the noises that I wanted from the toys. So I just went with this in the end.
Awesome. A question from me, once again, a selfish question. I'm a fan of Knight Rider, or at least I grew up in that era. What did you think of that synth theme for the Knight Rider TV show?
How does that go? Is that do?
Yeah,
exactly. Knight Rider? Oh, of course, it's good. It's a classic one. Right off the top of my head, I can't remember what synthesizers are being played on it, but I think it's a nice monophonic synthesizer sound on the top. Yeah, I don't know what synthesizer that is, but gosh knows. It's cool though.
Oh, well, at least you like the tune. And Annie T says, yes, please come back to talk telephone exchanges. That sounds, like you say, it could be hours. We'd have to fit it into another show. Maybe we can talk to Sam about returning sometime in the future when he's got a moment. Clearly, he's a busy guy.
Yeah, I can pop back.
Carry on.
Hello, have I gone?
Awesome. No, you're still there?
Oh, the main riff was on a Roland Jupiter 8.
Okay.
Knight Rider. The Jupiter 8.
Interesting. Was that a good keyboard?
Oh, it's a very good keyboard. In fact, everybody's trying to, well, a lot of people try to find it now, and you wouldn't believe how much they cost nowadays. So the Jupiter 8 is the top of the range analog synthesizer from the early 80s, polyphonic by Roland. And you're looking, oh God, looking at the prices now, people are selling them for £20,000. Woo! Wow. Ridiculous.
Okay.
That's a lot of money. I won't be getting one anytime soon.
I had a Roland JV30. It was pretty much on the bottom end, but you know, it did the job for me at the time.
Yeah, JV30. I'm trying to remember what those ones are. Oh yeah. So that's when that's the Rompler, isn't it? A ROM. It loads from the ROM as you turn it on. Yeah, still a good one.
Yeah,
but not quite at the cult following of the Jupiter 8.
Yeah, the thing is the JV30 had obviously a synthesizer was built in. This thing behind me isn't, which I find a bit of an inconvenience because I have to plug it into a PC or something. So I'm actually thinking of removing the synthesizer board and just using the MIDI in and the MIDI out from there, and then I'll have the old sounds back. We'll see how that project goes.
That sounds like a good project. Well, always good. And this is the thing, when you've got a piece of a product that you're not 100% happy with the way it works, having the knowledge to be able to tinker with it is a very good thing, because it's freeing. It gives you a freedom pass, because your life is not dictated by products and machines that have been built by other people, because you can modify it to suit your needs. It's just it's freeing. It's freeing, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah, and the JV30 keyboard is like this big, but the synth, the electronics board is only about that big. So that would be nice and portable if I removed it, because the main reason I'm not using the JV30 is the keys are broken, and replacement keys were just more expensive than getting another keyboard.
Yeah.
Just one final question, because we do have to wrap up. We are over time. From Frank de Hart again. Isn't that the one that Vangelis used? I think he was referring to the Juno.
No, so Vangelis, I think, is famous for using the CS80, which is the Yamaha CS80, and those are crazy money. Like, so that's both of them have different designs, synthesizer designs. I'll do 2 minutes and I'll be done. Roland Jupiter 8 it's called a Jupiter 8 because it's got 8 separate polyphonic synthesizer voices. The CS80 works in a different manner. The CS80 is an 8 voice as well. But you're looking to buy a CS80 by Vangelis, you're talking about nowadays about 60 to 70,000 pounds. So ridiculous money. Euros, 70,000 euros, 20,000 euros for a Duke. It's ridiculous. It's stupid. They're not worth that much. I think there's just some daft rich collectors out there that are either A, trying to get their money's worth, or B, too much money, more money than sense, and buying these old machines and just shoving them in their collection. I don't know. It's just ridiculous. That's why
we regret.
Sorry?
And how many things we regret due to lack of space that we got rid of in the past that's worth a lot now.
Exactly, yeah, worth in the past. And a quick one just to mention before, there is a very good CS80. This is the one that Vangelis used, clone that you can build yourself, DIY. It's still quite expensive, but if you buy all the parts, it's called the Black Corporation Deckard's Dream. And it's all of the parts together. It will take you about a month to build if you do it every evening. There's a lot of parts on it. So have a look at that. It's a serious DIY project, but it's really cool. It's one of the best synths you can, get the sounds of. And that's from the reason it's called Deckard's Dream is because Deckard is somebody in Blade Runner, and Vangelis didn't he do the Blade Runner theme tune on the CS80?
Yep.
There we go.
1982 Harrison Ford, and he was Deckard.
That's the one.
I shouldn't do any spoilers, even though the movie's like 42 years old or something. So
Yeah.
Second stream was great. Yeah, we have to go, but Jack says, wonderful discussion. I'm inspired to look into more retro tech. And this chat was so quick fire that you're probably going to have to watch it again, Jack. There were so many great ideas coming from Sam. And Sam, thank you so much for sharing all those ideas. And thanks a lot for joining us.
That's all right, Brian. And thanks, everybody, for watching. It was very nice. And thank you for the questions. I hope you had a good time.
Yeah, I did. I certainly did. That's Sam from Look Mum No Computer. Google him. He's got a great YouTube channel. He also makes music videos. I wanted to get into some of that, but we've run out of time on that too. Excellent stuff. I would love to see him live, but it's not going to fall around my time in the UK. So sad, too bad, but maybe next year. We'll see. Thank you to our audience for joining us from around the world. And I know you guys are really from all over the world, so it's morning, afternoon, and evening, as always. So thank you for joining us wherever you are, whether you're at work or at home. And good luck for those of you entering our competition to win the USB audio stick. And Sam, we'll have to get you one of those just as a little thank you for joining us today.
That would be absolutely amazing.
Cheers. Have a good one. And thank you, everyone. And Cheers. Goodbye.
Thank you.